Tonight it is live 4, and as promised, it is 118 nations have no seat at the AI governance table. The UN's answer has no enforcement powers, and that is what we will discuss today in our live premiere at 8 PM CST now. Imagine 118 nations, not small nations, not peripheral nations, nations from Africa, Latin America, and large parts of Asia, home to billions of people whose lives are already being shaped by artificial intelligence systems they had no role in governing, no voice in regulating, and no seat at the table in designing. 118 nations, party to 0 of the 7 major international AI governance initiatives currently in operation. In September 2024, the United Nations released its answer to this problem. And tonight's puzzle for each one of you: was that answer a new binding treaty? A new international agency with enforcement powers? Or something else entirely? And does the choice really matter? Hold that answer. We will discuss this in this presentation, and by the end of it, we resolve it as like we do always. Before I go further, I want your prediction in the comments box. Right now, it is live. When the UN faced this, did it build a binding treaty, an enforcement agency, or something softer? Type 1, 2, or 3. Live chat, call it, and I'll read the room before this reveal. Predicting wrong tonight teaches you how the UN actually works. So yes, I'm waiting for your comments. Good evening and welcome back to the AI Law Daily. I'm your host, Nupur Mitra, a techno-legal analyst and a lawyer by profession, and this is your weekly live premiere analysis at the intersection of artificial intelligence, international law, and the governance gaps that neither has yet fully mapped for the other. Over the past 3 evenings, we've built a precise architecture of understanding. In Live 1, last week, eminent domain and AI infrastructure. In Live 2, the Framework Convention, where private sector application is optional. In Live 3, the EU AI Act, where extraterritorial reach exceeds enforcement architecture. And tonight, Live 4, we go to the institution with the most universal membership in human history. 193 member states. Yes, the United Nations, as we all know. And we ask, when the UN looked at this governance gap, not as a regional regulator, not as a treaty body, but as the world's only genuinely universal institution, what did it propose? And is that proposal sufficient enough? On September 19, 2024, the United Nations Secretary General's high-level advisory body on artificial intelligence released its final report. The title, Governing AI for Humanity. The body itself was significant. 38 multidisciplinary experts drawn from 68 countries, representing governments, civil society, the private sector, and, of course, academia. Its work involved 18 deep dive discussions, more than 50 consultation sessions across every region, and more than 250 written submissions from over 150 organizations. This was not a rushed exercise. It was a year-long, globally consultative process. And its central finding was stark. The report opens with a direct statement. There is today a global governance deficit with respect to AI. The current, and I quote, patchwork of norms and institutions is still nascent and full of gaps. The diagnostic data is precise. Of 7 prominent international AI governance initiatives, only 7 countries, predominantly from the global north, are the party to all 7. 118 countries are party to none. Within the United Nations system itself, more than 27 instruments touch on AI, but not one addresses AI governance holistically. And no high-performance computing cluster, the physical infrastructure on which frontier AI is built, is hosted in any developing country. This is not a governance gap. The report names it precisely as a governance deficit. A gap is an absence. A deficit is a structural failure with identifiable causes and consequences. Against this deficit, the advisory body, it proposed 7 recommendations organized around a deliberate conceptual architecture. The first pillar, common understanding. Recommendation 1, it proposes an independent international scientific panel on AI, explicitly modeled in part on the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Its mandate: annual reports on AI capabilities, opportunities, and risks. The second pillar, common ground. Recommendation 2, it proposes a twice-yearly intergovernmental and multi-stakeholder policy dialogue on AI governance convened at the United Nations. Recommendation 3 proposes an AI standards exchange, a clearinghouse bringing together ISO, the IEC, the ITU, the IEEE, technology companies, and civil societies together. The third pillar, common benefits. Recommendation 4, it proposes an AI capacity development network. Recommendation 5 proposes a global fund for AI. Recommendation 6 proposes a global AI data framework establishing standards for AI training data provenance and cross-border interoperability. And underpinning all 6, the fourth pillar, coherent effort. Recommendation 7, it proposes a UN AI office described as a light, agile secretariat within the UN Secretariat itself, reporting to the Secretary General acting, and this word is used explicitly as glue, supporting all other proposals. So, 7 recommendations, 3 pillars of substance, 1 coordinating office, and now the governance question at the heart of tonight's episode here. Not one of these 7 recommendations proposes a binding treaty. Not one proposes an enforcement mechanism. Not one creates an international body with the authority to compel compliance from any state or any private actor. This was a deliberate choice, and it is a choice with consequences. The response from expert civil society was swift and substantive. Global Partners Digital, an organization that closely supported the advisory body's work, published a formal analysis on September 30, 2024, 11 days after the report's release. Their assessment was precise. They described it as, I quote, more like a plug-in proposal than the ambitious intervention promised by the interim report. They identified a specific error. The final report de-emphasized normative coordination, the harmonization of legal and ethical standards across jurisdictions, anchored in human rights, in favor of a focus on international cooperation. Their judgment. This is, in our view, an error if the aim is building a progressive and strengthened path for accountability in AI governance. They also raised a structural concern about centralization. The final report placed the majority of its newly proposed entities within a single office anticipated to be based in New York, which they argued risks a more closed and opaque governance environment. A light mechanism, a coordination architecture, an office as glue. The question is not whether these are useful. The question is whether they are sufficient given the scale of the deficit the same report diagnosed. So before I resolve this, the central debate of this entire field, and I want your vote on this, does the world need an AI agency with real enforcement powers, or is coordination enough to start? Comment 1, for enforcement, coordination is too weak. Comment 2, for coordination first, enforcement isn't realistic yet. One word, where do you stand? I want to hear from you. So, tonight's puzzle, 118 nations excluded. The UN's answer, a new binding treaty, a new agency with enforcement powers, or something else? The answer is the third option for me. Something else entirely. The UN Advisory Board proposed a coordination architecture, a scientific panel, a policy dialogue, a standards exchange, a capacity network, a global fund, a data framework, and a lightweight secretariat. 7 recommendations, 0 enforcement powers, 0 binding obligations. And does the choice really matter? Yes, but not simply. The report itself acknowledges carefully that it does not currently recommend a full international AI agency with enforcement powers, but it states explicitly that if AI risks become more acute, such an institution may become necessary. In other words, the light architecture is not presented as the permanent answer. It is the achievable answer given current geopolitical conditions. And the Risk Global Pulse check tells you why urgency remains. 78% of experts expressed concern about AI and information integrity. 75% about AI in armed conflict. 74% about wealth and power concentration. 120 member states expressed support for a binding treaty on autonomous weapons systems. The gap between what expert consensus identifies as necessary and what the current architecture provides, that gap is precisely the terrain this series, the live premiere, is mapping each week. So tonight's takeaway is this. The UN Advisory Body's report is a serious, globally consultative and evidence-based diagnostic. Its proposed remedy is deliberately modest, not because the authors did not understand the scale of the problem, but because the architecture of international consensus is not available on the timeline that AI development demands. And here is what makes tonight genuinely timely. The Independent International Scientific Panel on AI, Recommendation 1 from this report, was formally established by UN General Assembly resolution in August 2025. its first session, the first session of the first global scientific body on artificial intelligence, is taking place this month, July 2026. We're not watching history. We are in it already. Next in the live premiere series, Live 5, we examine autonomous weapons. 120 member states support a binding treaty. No treaty exists. And the AI systems currently deployed in active conflict zones operate inside a legal framework designed for a different century. 8 o'clock Central. Be here next. If tonight added precision to how you think, do these 3 things. Follow me on this channel, the AI Law, Global Security, AI Risks and Liability. Follow me on my LinkedIn, Substack, Instagram, and also please join my newsletter at thoughtleadinnovate.com/newsletter. And now I leave with one promise. I'll be back for Live 5. Do you promise me the same? See you again.